So what do you say we spend a little time in the garden today? All right. A couple videos ago we got our indeterminate tomatoes in the ground, plus a row of peppers. And today it's time to get these pretty babies right here in the ground, our determinate tomatoes. But before we do that, let's check on how those indeterminate tomatoes are doing. So this is our nightshade plot for 2021 where we're putting our tomatoes and peppers. This first row here is where we put our indeterminate tomato plants. A few videos ago, we got a 60-foot long row here. We put those plants in there but 3 feet apart. So we end up with about 20 plants. And these guys have already started growing pretty well here. They're a good bit bigger than they were when we put them in the ground just about a week and a half ago. I did come in here and inject a light dose of 20-20-20 in our micro boost through the drip system there, and they seem to have enjoyed it, and they're starting to grow already, even getting a few blooms on some of these guys right here. I think this is one of those grape tomato varieties we planted. You can see some blooms right there, and happy with how these are coming along so far. Now, when we did that video planting these indeterminate tomatoes, we had a lot of people asking where we going to prune them, or why didn't we prune them before we put them in the ground so the leaves weren't touching the ground and all that. And I have pruned the indeterminates before. I've had years where I didn't prune them. I really can't tell a huge difference in the performance because, like I told you on that video, all the tomatoes are toast come mid-July here just because it's so hot. So it's not like we have this long indeterminate tomato growing season. So I wasn't planning on pruning them, but I got to talking to the breeder for one of these varieties we planted here, the Purple Boy tomato, and he recommended that we prune that variety. He said to really get it to size, it needs to be pruned. So I figured, well, if I'm gonna prune one, let's prune them all. So I'm gonna come in here and just get these bottom lateral stems right here and just trim these up a little bit. Now I won't continue to do this as they grow and do a single stem technique like you see some people do, because like I said, these things won't last that long once it gets really hot around here. But I will prune them a little bit early just to kind of get some size on them as the breeder recommended. So we got these puppies trimmed up a little bit, and like I said, we'll probably do this 1 or 2 more times. Throw some soil to that main base of the plant there to promote some more root development. We'll just probably prune them 1 or 2 more times, and that should be good for us. And then another reason I got to thinking, well, it would be a good idea to at least prune these guys at the bottom, has to do with the cages we're going to be using to support these plants. So once those plants get a little bit taller and we're able to throw some soil around the base of those plants, then we'll put our cages in place. And these are some awesome tomato cages. We used to sell them on our site, quite a few of them, but they don't necessarily fit within UPS ground shipping parameters anymore. So unfortunately we had to discontinue them. Thankfully they last forever, so I've got about 20 of them that I can use on this row of indeterminate tomatoes. Another thing to consider is once these cages are in the ground, it can be tough to kind of weed right there around the plant. So I've got about 3 bales of wheat straw left over from doing my thornless blackberries, and I'll probably just put a little bit, just a little ring around each plant there before I put my cage in, so I don't have to worry about reaching in there and weeding around that cage, and we can just use our wheel hoe here between the rows. So the pruning seems like it's going to come in handy, at least since we're using these cages here, but we won't put those in place until we heal those plants a little bit more. So now back to the determinate varieties that we're actually going to be planting today. So when we planted those indeterminate tomatoes, we planted them out of these 4-inch pots like you see here. We started them in these 162 trays, and then we stepped them up to the 4-inch pots just because I wanted to get a bigger plant in the ground, because these guys aren't quite as hardy as these guys are. So once it starts to get hot and the disease pressure ramps up in early summer, these guys won't be able to take that as much as these guys will, so I wanted to give these a little bit of a head start. Well, for our determinate tomatoes, we'll plant those right out of this 162 tray here. So you can see there we got a nice little tomato plug there, and you don't have to plant a massive tomato plant in the ground. This guy right here will amaze you at how fast it'll take off and start growing, and it'll catch up with those bigger transplants before you know it. So we don't like to take the extra effort with these. No need to take up extra space in the greenhouse. We just take these guys, put them right in the ground, as we'll do here in a little bit, and that's how you know when they're ready to go in the ground, when they got a nice root ball there, and you can just grab one by the stem lightly, pull it right out of the tray. If they don't pull out and that root ball don't stay together like that, they're not ready to go in the ground. But those guys are nice and ready. You can see those roots are trained to grow down instead of wrapping around, which is what we want to see there. So we got several different varieties here. We've got Bella Rosa, which has been a long favorite of ours. Red Snapper, which is a new one we added last year, a huge favorite for us and our customers. Summer Pick did really well for us last year, and it ranked really high in our taste tests we did. A few new ones I haven't ever grown, but I've heard good things about. Florida 91, a good heat set tomato. Roadster, Southern Ripe, another good heat set tomato. Tachi is a paste type tomato we grew last year, did really well, and then we added a new paste type determinate called Invincible. I'm looking forward to comparing to the Tachi. On the end here I've got another indeterminate type, a Chef's Choice Pink, that I'm going to find somewhere to put, but I'm not going to put in the same row as these determinates because we're going to use the Florida weave to trellis these guys. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 varieties here. Based on my row length, putting these 2 feet apart, I should be able to get 4 plants of each variety, and I have a nice little determinate tomato trial out there. So now we just need to lay another line of drip tape in this plot. We've got 2 lines already ran for those peppers and indeterminate tomatoes, and I've already got it staked off. I did this when I did those first 2 rows. Where these 2 rows in the middle are going to be, so right here where this stake is, we're going to make a furrow. Put some of our complete organic fertilizer in that furrow, lay some drip tape in there, cover it up, and then we'll be ready to put these determinate tomatoes in the ground.
There is nowhere else I want to be than with my arms wrapped tight around you. Oh yeah, oh.
So we got our row made there, made us a furrow. Laid the drip tape in the furrow. I went with the 15 mil tape. I had a roll I need to use, and that's what I used on these other 2 rolls. So I just hand rolled it out there on a piece of rebar. Didn't use my drip tape layer attachment for just this 1 row here. Got it amended with some of our complete organic fertilizer, and then got it covered up with our high arch wheel hoe there. And I've got the water running to those drip lines, and I figured about as well go ahead and inject some good fish emulsion in there, feed those plants that have already been planted, and feed the soil there for where we're about to plant those plants. So I just put some fish emulsion in my Hoss fertilizer injector there. You can see that kind of brown liquid flowing through that tube into our water hose out through our drip lines there to feed our soil. And now we just wait a few minutes for our water spots to start to develop where those emitters are, because that's going to tell us where we need to put our plants. And while we're waiting on those water spots, let's talk a minute about determinate tomatoes and why I like them so much. I mentioned on that last tomato planting video that I'm not the biggest fan of indeterminate or heirloom tomatoes, just because they don't do as well down here for us. They're not quite as hardy, quite as disease resistant. Also, like I said, they're done in July, so we don't get that long extended harvest period that some people up north get. With these determinate ones, man, they just produce clusters and clusters of tomatoes kind of all at one time within a 2 or 3 week period there. So we get some really good bumper harvest. And we do a lot of tomato canning around here, you know, canned tomatoes to make chili, make pasta sauce, all kind of good stuff. And for that purpose, it's really good to have a bunch of tomatoes coming in at one time, because you get all your canning equipment out, you want to have enough tomatoes to make it worthwhile to do, you know, at least 8 or 20 jars at the time. So that's why we like the determinates. I also really like them because the plants are short and compact. They're a lot easier to trellis. I can trellis them with my Florida weave technique, and it's just a lot easier to manage these guys, in my opinion. a lot of people that live up north and do have that extended tomato growing season, what they'll do, especially people that are selling tomatoes for market or whatever, is they'll succession plant these things. So they'll plant a round, wait a few weeks, plant another round, and then they have those really big bumper harvests continually throughout their longer tomato growing season. So that's a good option for you if you want lots and lots of tomatoes just continually coming in. But like I said, these are my favorites. I really love the Determinates, and just can't wait to see the production and compare some of these varieties that we've never tried before. So we can start to see some of our water spots popping up there. You see our buried tape there, and there's an emitter right there where that water's slowly dripping out. And with these Determinate tomatoes out of these 162 traces, these guys are a lot smaller. Obviously, we can't plant them near as deep as we can those we had in a 4-inch pot. But we'll put them, you know, as deep as we can, making sure we leave these leaves above the soil, and then we'll come back and hill them, you know, once they get up and going a little bit. So we'll just kind of put it right here beside this emitter, stick it down in there, and cover it up with soil. Get it planted as deep as we can for these little 5 or 6 inch tall transplants here. All right, we got them in. Yes, they do look tiny right now, but these things will start growing pretty fast pretty soon. We didn't quite get 4 transplants from all 8 varieties. We did get 4 of each of the slicers, but on the end there I was only squeezing in 2 Tachis and 2 of the Invincible paste tomatoes, which would be just fine. That'll give us enough to do a fair comparison here with all these guys. So we got 3 of the 4 rows in that night-shaped plot planted. The 4th row is just going to be kind of a hodgepodge. I got some peppers that I planted late, some giant pepper varieties we just added this year. I got some tomatillos and maybe a few more tomato varieties, stuff I planted late that we'll throw in there. So just kind of a mixture of stuff in that 4th row that'll go in the middle there. Now, as far as these Determinate tomatoes go, don't prune these guys. Even if you really like pruning tomatoes, just kind of hold back and don't prune them. If you have to prune them, you can cut a little bit off the bottom there so your leaves aren't touching the soil. But these things do better when they're not pruned. You want to just maximize the foliage there. And at least for us down here in the south, all that foliage really helps protect the fruits from getting scalded by the sun and lets them hold a nice red color there. So I don't touch these Determinate tomatoes with a pair of pruners. We just let them get as bushy and as dense foliage as we can. And when we're doing the Florida weave, we just kind of wrap all that up, keep it contained there, and try to keep them fruits shaded from getting burnt by the sun. So if you've planted any of these Determinate varieties we planted today, let me know what you think of them. I know a lot of you guys planted Bella Rosa and Red Snapper, maybe some of the others for the first time last year. Let me know what you thought. Are you planting them again, or are you trying something different? I'll put some links below to all the varieties we planted today, so you can head on over to our website and check those out. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give me a big thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and ring that bell so you get notified every time we come out with a new video. And if you did enjoy this one, make sure to check out these other 2 tomato videos right here. I think you'll really enjoy those as well. We'll see you next time.